She whispered through tears on the restaurant floor. Please don't push me down again. The billionaire who shoved her just smirked. What she didn't know, the quiet man watching from the corner table was the most feared mafia boss in the city. And he just decided no one would ever push her down again. The crystal chandelier above table 14 needed dusting. Ana Martinez noticed it as she balanced 4 plates of sea bass on her forearm, weaving through the Friday night crowd at Le Bernardin Palace. In her 2 years serving Manhattan's elite, she'd learned to spot imperfections: the smudged wine glass, the crooked fork, the chandelier that dulled the sparkle in a millionaire's champagne. She'd learned to stay invisible, too. "Excuse me, miss?" An older woman at table 9 waved a jeweled hand. "Another bottle of the Chateau Margaux." "Right away, ma'am," Anna smiled, delivered her sea bass plates, and hurried toward the wine cellar entrance near the kitchen. The restaurant hummed with laughter and clinking glasses. Somewhere, a man proposed. Somewhere else, a business deal died over dessert. Anna moved through it all like a ghost in a black vest and white shirt. She didn't see Ethan Caldwell until it was too late. The collision happened in the narrow corridor between the bar and the dining room. Anna, carrying a crystal water pitcher she'd just refilled, turned the corner at the exact moment Ethan stepped backward from his table, phone pressed to his ear, not looking. The physics were simple. The outcome was not. Water arced through the air in slow motion, or maybe that's just how Anna remembered it later. The pitcher slipped from her hands as she stumbled. Cold water splashed across Ethan's charcoal designer jacket, darkening the fabric from shoulder to waist. Time stopped. Ethan Caldwell froze mid-sentence, staring down at his ruined jacket. At 28, he had the sharp features of old money and the cold eyes of someone who'd never heard the word no. His cologne probably cost more than Anna's monthly rent. I'm so sorry, sir." Anna dropped to her knees, grabbing napkins from a nearby service station. "I didn't see you. I'm so sorry, let me." "Are you kidding me?" Ethan's voice cut through the restaurant chatter like breaking glass. Conversations died at nearby tables. Heads turned. "Do you know how much this jacket costs?" "I'll pay for the cleaning, Cleaning?" Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "This is Brioni. Custom. You couldn't afford this jacket if you saved for a year." Anna's hands shook as she tried to dab at the water. Her manager, Marcus, was already rushing over, his face pale. This was bad. This was really bad. The Caldwells owned half the real estate in Manhattan. They were regulars. They were untouchable. "Sir, I apologize profusely," Marcus began, but Ethan wasn't listening. He was looking at Anna with something worse than anger. Contempt. "Get up," he said coldly. Anna stood, napkins clutched in her trembling hands. Around them, the restaurant had gone quiet. 50 pairs of eyes watched from shadows and candlelight. Anna felt her face burning, tears stinging behind her eyes. Don't cry, she thought. Don't cry in front of them. "People like you," Ethan said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "are too stupid to work anywhere decent. You're clumsy, careless. Honestly, I don't know why they hire." "It was an accident," Anna whispered. "Please, Shut up." Ethan stepped closer. "You know what? You're right. You should pay for this. What do you make minimum wage? Tips?" He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my lawyer. We'll garnish your wages for the next." "Sir, please," Marcus pleaded. "We'll comp your entire meal, your drinks, everything." Ethan's hand shot out. The shove wasn't violent, exactly. Not a punch or a strike. Just 2 hands on Anna's shoulders, pushing hard enough to send her stumbling backward. Her heel caught on the edge of a floor mat. Her arms windmilled. She fell. The sound of her body hitting the marble floor echoed through the silent restaurant. Pain shot through her hip and elbow. The napkins scattered around her like snow. For a moment, Anna just lay there, stunned. She'd never been pushed before. Never been treated like nothing. Like less than nothing. Somewhere in the crowd, someone snickered. "Please," Anna heard herself say, her voice breaking. She looked up at Ethan from the floor, tears finally spilling over. "Please don't push me down again." She wasn't sure why she said it. Maybe because she couldn't say anything else. Maybe because, in that moment, lying on the cold marble while Manhattan's elite watched and whispered, those were the only words that felt true. The snickering grew louder. Someone muttered something about the help. Marcus reached down to help her up, apologizing, always apologizing. Then a chair scraped. The sound cut through the whispers like a blade. Anna looked up through blurred vision and saw a man rising from the VIP section in the back corner, the table everyone knew but nobody approached. Table 23. The table that was always reserved, always private, always surrounded by men in dark suits who never smiled. Alessandro Moretti moved through the crowd like a shark through shallow water. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'10", but he didn't need height. Something in the way he walked, the set of his shoulders, the absolute calm in his dark eyes, made people step back without thinking. The restaurant held its breath. Alessandro stopped in front of Ethan, who hadn't noticed him yet. Ethan was smirking at his friends, pocketing his phone, probably already composing the story he'd tell at his next country club meeting. Then Alessandro's hand shot out and grabbed Ethan's collar. The movement was so fast, so sudden, that Ethan didn't even have time to react. 1 second he was standing. The next, he was being lifted onto his toes. Alessandro's fist twisted in his expensive shirt, their faces inches apart. "You," Alessandro said quietly, "made a mistake." His voice was barely above a whisper, but in the dead silence of Le Bernardin Palace, everyone heard it. Ethan's face went from red to white in an instant. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Alessandro didn't shout, didn't threaten, didn't need to. He simply held Ethan there, suspended, while his dark eyes promised things that made grown men confess sins they hadn't committed yet. From the floor, Anna stared up at both of them, her heart pounding so hard she thought she might pass out. And somewhere in the back of the restaurant, 3 different phones captured everything. For exactly 7 seconds, nobody moved. Alessandro held Ethan suspended by his collar, their faces so close that Ethan's panicked breathing fogged the space between them. The Mafia boss's expression never changed, no anger, no satisfaction, nothing but cold calculation. Then, just as suddenly as he'd grab him, Alessandro let go. Ethan stumbled backward, gasping, his hand flying to his throat. His face had gone from white to a sickly gray. For a man who'd never experienced real consequences in his 28 years, those 7 seconds had lasted a lifetime. "Mr. Caldwell," a voice cut through the tension. 3 men in expensive suits materialized from somewhere in the crowd. Ethan's bodyguards, his father's men, the people paid to keep him safe. They'd been too shocked to react at first. Nobody grabbed Alessandro Moretti. Nobody touched the Caldwells. These 2 facts couldn't exist in the same universe. But they just had. "We're leaving," the lead bodyguard said firmly, positioning himself between Ethan and Alessandro. His hand hovered near his jacket, not quite reaching for a weapon, but the threat was clear. Alessandro didn't even glance at him. He adjusted his own jacket cuffs, completely unbothered, as if he'd just swatted a fly instead of publicly humiliating one of Manhattan's most powerful heirs. "Smart choice," Alessandro said quietly. Ethan's friends scrambled to gather his things, his phone, his wallet, his dignity. One of them threw cash on the table, far more than their bill required. They weren't paying for dinner. They were paying to leave alive. "This isn't over," Ethan managed to choke out, but his voice cracked on the last word. His hand still trembled at his throat. Alessandro finally looked at him, really looked at him, and smiled. It was the kind of smile that sent Ethan and his entire entourage backing toward the exit, nearly tripping over themselves. They left through the front doors in a rush of expensive cologne and quiet panic, leaving behind a restaurant full of witnesses and a story that would be told in whispers for months. The moment they were gone, the spell broke. Conversations erupted at every table, but quieter now, more careful. Everyone had seen what happened. Nobody wanted to be next. Anna was still on the floor. Marcus helped her up, his hands shaking almost as badly as hers. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine, Annalit. Her hip throbbed where she'd landed, and her elbow was already starting to bruise. But that wasn't what had her shaking. She looked toward table 23, where Alessandro had returned to his seat as if nothing had happened. He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her, just picked up his wine glass and took a sip, resuming a conversation with the man across from him, a gray-haired man in a perfectly tailored suit who'd watched the entire scene with mild interest. Go clean up, Marcus whispered.
Take a break.
10 minutes. Anna nodded numbly and headed for the staff bathroom on unsteady legs. Behind her, the restaurant slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but she could feel every eye following her path across the floor. In the bathroom, she locked herself in a stall and finally let herself cry. Not from pain, though her body ached, but from humiliation,
Confusion. Fear.
Why had Alessandro Moretti, of all people, defended her? Everyone in Manhattan knew his name. Everyone knew what he did, even if they pretended not to. 5 minutes later, Anna splashed cold water on her face and returned to work. She had 6 more hours on her shift. Bills didn't pay themselves. The rest of the night passed in a blur of whispered conversations and pointed stares. Other waitresses asked if she was okay in hushed voices. The kitchen staff treated her like she'd survived a car crash. Even the restaurant's owner, Mr. Chen, appeared from his office to check on her, something he'd never done before. You sure you can work? He asked, studying her face. I'm sure. He nodded slowly. Table 23 asked for you specifically. Anna's stomach dropped. What? They want you to handle their table for the rest of the night.
Just.
Be professional. And polite. Her legs felt like water as she approached table 23. Alessandro was discussing something with his companion in Italian, their voices low. She caught fragments, numbers, names she didn't recognize, words that sounded like business but felt like threat. Excuse me, she said softly. Can I get you anything? Alessandro glanced up. His eyes were dark brown, almost black, and completely unreadable. The lady will have the chocolate soufflé. Anna blinked. There was no lady at the table. Just Alessandro and the gray-haired man. For you? Alessandro clarified, his expression neutral. After your shift. The kitchen will prepare it. I don't understand. You don't need to, he returned to his conversation, dismissing her without another word. Anna stood there for a moment, confused, then retreated to the kitchen. Behind her, she heard the gray-haired man chuckle. You've got a soft spot, Alessandro. I've got standards, Vincent. There's a difference. By the time Anna's shift ended at midnight, her feet ached and her mind raced with questions she couldn't answer. The kitchen had indeed prepared a chocolate soufflé, which sat waiting for her with a small note. Go home safe. In the staff changing room, the other waitresses couldn't stop talking. Did you see his face? Ethan looked like he was going to pass out. I heard someone recorded it. Everyone's talking about it. Why would Alessandro Moretti care about a waitress? Anna changed in silence, avoiding their questions. She just wanted to go home, take a hot shower, and forget this night ever happened. But as she left through the back exit into the cold November air, she noticed a black car idling at the curb. The window rolled down, revealing a man in a dark suit, one of Alessandro's men from table 23. Get in, he said. We'll take you home. I can take the subway. It wasn't a request, miss. Anna hesitated, then climbed into the car. As they pulled away from the restaurant, she caught a glimpse of someone across the street, phone raised, camera pointed at her. The videos, she would learn later, had already begun to spread. Richard Caldwell's Saturday morning began with 18 text messages, 11 missed calls, and a video that made his coffee taste like battery acid. He sat in his penthouse office overlooking Central Park, watching his son get grabbed by the collar for the 4th time. The video quality was excellent. Some society wife with a new iPhone had captured every humiliating second. Ethan's face, pale and terrified. Alessandro's calm, deadly grip. The entire restaurant watching. Sir? His assistant, Jennifer, stood in the doorway, tablet in hand. The PR team is here. Send them in. 3 people filed into his office. Dylan Torres, his head of public relations, Melissa Kim, crisis management specialist, and Robert Hayes, the lawyer who'd made bigger problems than this disappear. They all looked like they'd been awake for hours. Because they had been. Talk, Richard said, not looking away from his computer screen where the video played on loop. Dylan cleared his throat. As of 6 a.m., the video has been shared in 73 private group chats among Manhattan's social elite. It hasn't gone public yet. These people know better than to post openly. But everyone who matters has seen it. How bad? Bad, Melissa said bluntly. She opened her tablet. The narrative is forming fast. Here's what people are saying. Why did Alessandro Moretti defend a random waitress? The theories range from her being his illegitimate daughter to his secret mistress. Some think she's connected to another family. Everyone wants to know her name. Richard's jaw clenched. And my son. Silence. Say it. Dylan shifted uncomfortably. They're calling him a coward. A bully. Saying he picked on the wrong person's property. The word hung in the air like poison. Property. They were talking about a waitress like she belonged to Alessandro Moretti and, by extension, making his son look like he'd trespassed on Mafia territory. This is unacceptable, Richard said quietly. The quiet tone was worse than shouting. His staff knew that. Ethan pushed a clumsy waitress who ruined a $5,000 jacket. That's what happened. Instead, everyone's acting like he attacked the Pope. Robert leaned forward. With all due respect, sir, it doesn't matter what actually happened. It matters what it looks like. And right now, it looks like your son publicly humiliated someone under Moretti's protection. Then we change how it looks. Melissa nodded. That's what we're here to do. But we need to move fast. The Hampton Garden Club brunch is tomorrow. The Metropolitan Opera Gala is next week. Every charity event, every board meeting, people will be talking. We need to control that conversation. How? Dylan pulled out a folder thick with papers. We shift the narrative. Make this about the waitress, not Ethan. We paint her as incompetent, careless, possibly unstable. Someone who caused a scene and then played victim when consequences followed. And Alessandro? We don't touch him directly, Robert said firmly. Nobody touches Moretti directly. But we can imply he overreacted. Made a scene over nothing. Maybe even suggest he has questionable judgment when it comes to pretty young women. Richard considered this. It was risky, dancing around a man like Alessandro Moretti. But his family had built an empire on calculated risks. What about the restaurant? He asked. Le Bernardin Palace relies heavily on real estate contracts with luxury developers, Melissa said, reading from her tablet. 3 of their suppliers have outstanding business with Caldwell Properties. We can apply pressure there. Suggest that employing negligent staff creates liability issues. Do it, Richard stood, walking to the window. Below, Central Park stretched out in autumn colors, peaceful and perfect.
His city.
His territory. I want that waitress terminated by Monday. I want our lawyers to file complaints, public safety, negligence, whatever sticks. And I want the story to be that Ethan was the victim of a dangerous employee and an overreacting crime boss who shouldn't have been in that restaurant in the first place. Sir, Robert said carefully, filing against the restaurant means indirectly challenging Moretti. He's a regular there. I'm aware, Richard turned from the window. But we do it legally.
Publicly.
Through proper channels. Make it a business matter, not a personal one. Even Moretti has to respect the law. The 3 exchanged glances. They all knew Alessandro Moretti's relationship with the law was complicated at best. What about Ethan? Dylan asked. He should probably lay low for a while. Ethan is going to the Vanderbilt charity polo match this afternoon, Richard said firmly. He's going to smile, play well, and act like nothing happened. The Caldwells don't hide. We don't apologize. We don't run. After they left, Richard stood alone in his office, watching the video one more time. He paused it on Alessandro's face, that calm, calculated expression that promised violence, without saying a word. His phone buzzed. A text from his wife, Catherine, who was having breakfast at the plaza with her social circle.
Everyone's talking about last night.
I'm handling it, but you need to fix this.
Now.
Another text, this one from his business partner. Board meeting Tuesday. Investors are asking questions. And another from the mayor's office. We should talk. Richard deleted them all and made a call. This is Richard Caldwell. I want to file a formal complaint against Le Bernardin Palace for employing unsafe staff. I want it public, I want it legal, and I want it today. Across the city, in dozens of luxury apartments and townhouses, Manhattan's elite were having similar conversations over espresso and croissants. At the Whitmore estate, Victoria Whitmore whispered to her daughter, I heard she's his goddaughter from Sicily. At the University Club, Senator Patterson told his colleagues, Moretti never acts without reason. There's more to this story. At a Soho brunch spot, 3 gallery owners debated. Maybe she saved his life once. Maybe she's FBI. Maybe she's nobody, and that's what makes it interesting. Everyone had a theory. Nobody had answers. And in a small studio apartment in Queens, Anna Martinez woke up to 47 missed calls and a sinking feeling that her life had just become very, very complicated.
Her phone buzzed again.
Unknown number. The text was simple. Don't go to work today. Anna stared at it, her hands shaking. Everything was spinning out of control, and she didn't even understand why. Alessandro Moretti's office occupied the top floor of a building in Tribeca that officially housed an import-export business. The paperwork was legitimate. The taxes were paid. Everything looked clean to anyone who cared to look. Most people knew better than to look too closely. You've seen it, I assume, Vincent Rosselli said, setting an espresso on Alessandro's mahogany desk. Vincent had been Alessandro's consigliere for 15 years, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, and one of the few men alive who could speak to him without fear. Alessandro nodded, watching the video play on his laptop for the 3rd time that morning. The angle was good.
Clear audio.
He could see the exact moment the waitress, Anna Martinez, according to the file Vincent had already compiled, hit the floor. Could hear the tremor in her voice. Please don't push me down again. He closed the laptop. The Caldwells are moving fast, Vincent continued, settling into the leather chair across from Alessandro. Richard's already got his PR machine spinning. They're planning to make an example of the girl. Pressure the restaurant to fire her, file public complaints, paint her as incompetent and possibly unstable. Unstable, Alessandro repeated, his tone flat. Their words, not mine. Vincent pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages. They're being careful not to mention you directly, but the implication is clear. You overreacted to protect some random woman, which makes you look either irrational or involved. Alessandro's expression didn't change, but Vincent knew him well enough to catch the slight tightening around his eyes. They're also leaning on Le Bernardin Palace, Vincent added. Threatening their suppliers, questioning their insurance policies, making noise about safety violations. Chun is nervous. He called this morning asking if we wanted him to let the girl go quietly. What did you tell him? That you'd be in touch, Vincent paused. What do you want to do here, Alessandro? Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like a lot of noise over a waitress you met once. Alessandro stood and walked to the window. Below, Tribeca moved through its Saturday rhythm. Tourists with cameras, couples at cafes, joggers along the Hudson. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware of the chess game being played above their heads. Tell me about Richard Caldwell, he said. Vincent didn't need notes. Real estate empire built by his grandfather. Legitimate on paper, but he's not afraid to play dirty, bribes building inspectors, pushes out small businesses, has politicians in his pocket. Smart enough to never get caught, arrogant enough to think he's untouchable. His son Ethan is exactly what happens when you give a mediocre man unlimited money and zero consequences. Properties? 12 major developments currently in progress across Manhattan. The Crown Tower project in Midtown is his flagship, 60-story luxury condos, breaking ground next month. He's leveraged everything on it. If that project delays, his whole empire feels it. Alessandro turned from the window. What else? Steel shipments coming through Port Newark. Construction permits pending with the city. Contracts with union labor that could get complicated. Vincent smiled slightly.
Why?
You thinking about sending a message? I'm thinking, Alessandro said quietly, that Richard Caldwell made a mistake. Which mistake? Raising a son who pushes waitresses, or coming after someone under your protection? Both. Alessandro returned to his desk, opening a drawer and pulling out a thin folder. But more than that, he thinks he can control the narrative. Shape how people see what happened. Make the girl into a villain and his son into a victim. Can't he? Not if the story keeps changing. Alessandro opened the folder, revealing photographs, financial documents, shipping manifests. The Caldwells built their fortune on appearing untouchable. Legitimate.
Clean.
What happens when people start seeing cracks? Vincent leaned forward, scanning the documents. His eyebrows rose. Where did you get these? I've had them for 2 years. Caldwell tried to buy waterfront property I own in Red Hook. When I declined, he attempted to have the city seize it through eminent domain. I don't forget things like that. The document showed a pattern: suspicious zoning permit approvals, payments to offshore accounts, building code violations mysteriously dismissed. Nothing explosive on its own, but together? A mosaic of corruption. You've been waiting for the right moment to use these, Vincent said. It wasn't a question. I've been waiting for him to give me a reason. Alessandro closed the folder. He just did. Vincent sat back, a slow smile spreading across his face. So, what's the play? Alessandro's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a message from one of his men watching Anna's apartment. Target received warning text. Staying home today. Appears frightened.
Good.
Fear kept people safe. The play, Alessandro said, setting his phone down, is quiet. No violence. No drama. No dead bodies that trace back to us. We simply make life difficult for Richard Caldwell until he understands his position. And the girl? Protected. From a distance, Alessandro's voice was firm. She doesn't need to know. She doesn't need to be involved. She just needs to be safe while this plays out. Vincent nodded slowly. You know people will talk. They already are. Everyone wants to know why you care about a waitress. Let them talk. Speculation doesn't hurt us. Alessandro opened his laptop again, pulling up a different screen. Construction schedules, permit applications, shipping manifests for Caldwell projects. What hurts us is appearing weak. Allowing people like Ethan Caldwell to think they can act without consequences. And his father? Alessandro's smile was cold. Richard Caldwell is about to learn that money and power aren't the same thing. He has buildings, contracts, lawyers, all things that can be delayed, complicated, examined too closely. He closed the laptop with a soft click. Let's see how loud they are when the walls close in. Vincent stood, understanding the dismissal. I'll make some calls. Start with the port. His steel shipment is due Tuesday. Should be easy to delay for routine inspection. Nothing obvious. Nothing that traces back here. Never is. Vincent paused at the door. For what it's worth. That girl said one sentence, and you moved heaven and earth.
People notice things like that.
After Vincent left, Alessandro sat alone in his office, the morning sun casting long shadows across his desk. He pulled up the video one last time, watching Anna fall, hearing her broken voice.
Please don't push me down again.
She hadn't been asking Ethan. She'd been asking the world. Asking life to stop crushing her just once. To show a little mercy. Alessandro understood that feeling. Had felt it himself, once a lifetime ago in a different city with a different name. He deleted the video and made his first call. By sunset, 3 of Richard Caldwell's construction projects would experience mysterious delays. By Monday, the walls would start closing in. Anna spent Sunday in her apartment with the curtains drawn, ignoring her phone. By Monday morning, she'd convinced herself that maybe things would blow over. Maybe the whole incident would fade like it never happened. She was wrong. The call came at 9 a.m. Marcus, her manager, his voice tight with stress. "Anna, you need to come in.
Now.
Mr. Chen wants to see you." "My shift doesn't start until." "Now, Anna." The subway ride to the restaurant felt like riding toward an execution. Anna kept her head down, hyper-aware of every glance from other passengers. Did they know? Had they seen the videos? She'd finally looked at her phone last night and found dozens of messages from co-workers, old friends, even her cousin in Chicago asking if she was the waitress. Le Bernardin Palace looked different in daylight, less glamorous, more ordinary. The lunch prep crew was already working inside. Anna entered through the back, avoiding the main dining room, and headed straight for Mr. Chen's office. Marcus met her in the hallway. His expression made her stomach drop. "What's happening?" she asked. "Just let Mr. Chen explain." He wouldn't meet her eyes. Mr. Chen sat behind his desk, looking like he'd aged 10 years since Friday night. 2 other people were in the room, a woman in a sharp gray suit carrying a leather briefcase, and a man Anna recognized as David Park, the restaurant's general manager. "Sit down, Anna," Mr. Chen said quietly. She sat. Her hands were already shaking. The woman opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "Miss Martinez, my name is Sarah Winters. I'm the restaurant's legal counsel. What I'm about to show you is serious, and you need to understand the situation we're all in." She spread 3 letters across the desk. Official letterhead. Dense paragraphs of legal text. "As of this morning, Le Bernardin Palace has received formal complaints from Caldwell Properties' legal team," Sarah continued. "They're threatening a lawsuit for negligence, claiming you caused property damage to their client, created an unsafe dining environment, and that the restaurant is liable for employing what they call dangerously incompetent staff." Anna's mouth went dry. "But it was an accident. I bumped into him." "They don't care." David Park leaned forward, his voice strained. "They're also contacting our insurance company, our suppliers, and they've filed a formal complaint with the city health department suggesting we have safety protocol violations." "They're using a sledgehammer to kill a fly," Sarah said, her expression grim. "This isn't about justice. This is about making an example. The problem is they have the resources to make this hurt. Really hurt." Mr. Chen cleared his throat. "Anna, you're a good employee. You've worked here 2 years with no problems. But the Caldwells are putting pressure on us from every angle. Our insurance premiums could triple. Our suppliers are getting nervous. I had 2 investors call this morning asking if we're going to have ongoing legal issues." Anna felt tears burning behind her eyes. "What are you saying?" Silence. "You're firing me." "We don't want to," Mr. Chen said, and he sounded like he meant it. "But if we don't, this restaurant might not survive what they're planning. They want you gone, Anna. They're willing to destroy this entire business to make it happen. That's not fair. I didn't do anything wrong." "Life isn't fair." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "This is how powerful people operate. They identify a target, apply pressure, and wait for everyone around that target to fold. You're the target. We're the pressure point." Anna stood on shaking legs. "So what? I just quit? Disappear? Let them win?" "You survive," David said quietly. "That's what you do. Find another job, move on, and count yourself lucky you're not facing worse. Worse than losing my job for being pushed to the floor." Nobody answered. Anna walked out of the office in a daze. Marcus tried to stop her in the hallway, started to say something sympathetic, but she brushed past him. She needed air, needed to think. She burst through the back door into the alley behind the restaurant, gasping like she'd been underwater. This couldn't be happening. She'd worked so hard to build a stable life, left her hometown with nothing, found this job, paid her rent on time, stayed invisible and safe. One accident, One spilled pitcher of water, and everything was collapsing. You okay, miss? Anna jumped. Two men stood near a black sedan parked at the mouth of the alley. She recognized them vaguely. They'd been at Le Bernardin Palace on Friday night, sitting at table 23.
Alessandro's men.
I'm fine, she said automatically, wiping her eyes. The first man, tall, mid-40s, with a scar above his eyebrow, exchanged a glance with his partner. Doesn't look fine. It's none of your business. Actually, the second man said, younger with dark hair. It kind of is. We're supposed to make sure you're safe. Safe from what? I just got fired.
Or I will be.
Same thing, Anna laughed bitterly. Tell your boss thank you for Friday night, but his help just made everything worse. Now the Caldwells are coming after me with lawyers, and I can't even afford. She stopped, realizing she was shouting at Mafia enforcers in an alley. That seemed like a bad idea. The scarred man pulled out his phone, dialed, waited.
She's here.
Restaurant just threatened to fire her. Caldwell lawyers are applying pressure. A pause.
Yeah.
Okay. He hung up and looked at Anna, with something almost like sympathy.
Boss says don't quit. Don't sign anything.
Go home, stay there, and don't worry about money. I need money to pay rent. You'll have money, he said it like it was simple. Like reality could be bent by just deciding it would be. Just stay home. Stay safe. Let this play out. Let what play out? But they were already getting into their sedan, leaving her alone in the alley with more questions than answers. Anna pulled out her phone and stared at her bank account. $847. Enough for rent, barely, if she didn't eat much this month. A text appeared from an unknown number. Your rent is handled. Groceries will be delivered tomorrow.
Stay home.
Anna stared at the message, her heart pounding. What had she gotten herself into? Inside the restaurant, Mr. Chin received his own text. Don't fire the girl. We'll handle the Caldwells. He stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. Some messages you didn't keep, even if you understood them perfectly. On Tuesday morning, Richard Caldwell's Crown Tower project ground to a halt. The call came at 6:47 a.m. from his site foreman, Tom Brennan, a 20-year construction veteran who didn't panic easily. But his voice was tight. Mr. Caldwell, we have a problem. The steel shipment didn't arrive. Richard set down his coffee. What do you mean it didn't arrive? It cleared customs Friday. It should have been delivered yesterday. Port Newark says it's being held for routine inspection. They won't give us a timeline. Routine inspection? Richard's jaw clenched. That steel has been sitting there for 3 days. What changed? I don't know, sir. They're not saying. Just that it'll be released when the inspection is complete. Richard ended the call and immediately dialed his logistics coordinator. 20 minutes and 4 phone calls later, he had his answer. The steel was fine, the paperwork was fine, but some mid-level port inspector had flagged it for additional review under protocols that nobody seemed to understand. How long? Richard demanded. Could be days. Could be weeks. These inspections don't follow a schedule. Richard threw his phone across his office. It bounced off the leather couch, screen cracking. The Crown Tower was on a tight timeline, investors breathing down his neck, pre-construction sales already promised, media scheduled for a groundbreaking ceremony next week. Every day of delay cost him hundreds of thousands in contractor fees and lost momentum. This was supposed to be his legacy project, the crown jewel that cemented the Caldwell name in Manhattan's skyline. Now it was dead in the water because of a routine inspection. The next call came 2 hours later. His project in Brooklyn, a luxury condo conversion of an old warehouse, had been red-tagged by building inspectors. Structural concerns that needed to be addressed before work could continue. We passed inspection 3 weeks ago. Richard shouted into the phone. What structural concerns? His project manager, Linda Chun, sounded exhausted. They're saying the original inspection was incomplete. They want independent structural engineers to review the load-bearing walls before we can proceed. That'll take months to schedule. I know. This is insane. Who ordered this? City Building Department. They won't say why. just that it's required. By noon, a third project had hit problems. The electrical permits for his Upper East Side renovation, approved 6 months ago, were suddenly being questioned. The city needed to verify compliance with updated codes before work could continue. Richard stood at his office window, watching the city that suddenly felt like enemy territory. 3 projects. 3 separate problems. All happening within hours of each other. This wasn't coincidence. His phone rang again. His project manager at the Midtown site. Union workers had walked off the job, citing safety concerns that nobody could articulate. Another call. His concrete supplier apologizing profusely, explaining they'd been forced to prioritize other contracts. His order would be delayed indefinitely. Another. The crane rental company needed to reassess their availability schedule. Richard slumped in his chair, staring at the spreadsheet on his screen. Red everywhere. Delays cascading across every project. Millions of dollars bleeding out daily. His door opened without knocking. Only one person did that. Catherine Caldwell stood in the doorway in a Chanel suit, her expression icy. The Vanderbilt Foundation just withdrew our gala sponsorship. They're saying they need to reassess their partnerships given our recent legal complications. What legal complications? We filed a legitimate complaint against a restaurant. That's not how they see it. Catherine closed the door and sat across from him. I had lunch with Patricia Vanderbilt yesterday. She was very polite, very cold. She asked me why we were making such a fuss over a waitress. Why we couldn't just let it go. Because we don't let people disrespect our family. She asked about Alessandro Moretti. Catherine's voice dropped. She asked if we understood what we were doing. Silence filled the office like smoke. This is him, Richard said quietly. All of this. The inspections, the permits, the delays. Moretti is behind it, obviously.
How?
These are city agencies, federal port authorities, private contractors. He can't control all of them. Catherine gave him a look that mixed pity with exasperation. Richard, we've lived in this city our entire lives. You know how it works. Money talks, favors get called in, people remember who helped them and who didn't. Alessandro Moretti has been operating here for 20 years. Do you really think he doesn't have hooks in every department, every union, every agency that matters? So what? We just surrender? Back down because some gangster's flexing. I'm saying we're bleeding money and losing face every day this continues. Our investors are nervous. Our suppliers are backing away. Even our friends are keeping their distance. Catherine leaned forward. He's not punching us. He's suffocating us. Quietly. Legally. And we have no way to fight back because we can't even prove he's doing anything. Richard's hands clenched into fists. There has to be a way. There is. Apologize. Make this go away. Find the girl, compensate her, issue a public statement taking responsibility. She paused. Admit we were wrong. Never. Then watch your empire crumble over a spilled glass of water and your son's temper tantrum. Catherine stood. Your choice, Richard. But make it fast. We don't have much time. After she left, Richard sat alone in his office as the sun tracked across the sky. His phone kept buzzing, more problems, more delays, more bad news. Each one another finger of pressure, another wall closing in. He pulled up his computer and searched for Alessandro Moretti. Found almost nothing, no social media, no interviews, just a few business registrations and property records. The man was a ghost who somehow controlled half the city. A new email arrived. No sender name, just a message. The delays will continue until you understand your position. This is not negotiable. Richard stared at the screen, rage and fear warring in his chest. He'd built an empire on intimidation and power, had crushed competitors, bought politicians, bent the city to his will. And now someone was doing the same thing to him. He picked up his phone and called his lawyer. Robert, I need you to find out everything you can about Alessandro Moretti. I need leverage. I need something I can use. Sir, I'd advise. Find it, whatever it costs. He ended the call and looked out at his city again. If Moretti wanted a war, Richard would give him one. He just needed to find the right battlefield. Anna discovered she was famous on Wednesday morning when she opened her apartment door to get the groceries that had been mysteriously delivered, as promised, and found a camera flash in her face. Anna Martinez? How long have you been involved with Alessandro Moretti? She slammed the door, heart hammering. Through the peephole, she saw 3 people in the hallway, 2 with cameras, 1 with a phone recording. They were knocking now, calling her name. Just a few questions, Anna. What's your relationship with the Moretti family? Is it true you're under his protection? Anna backed away from the door, hands shaking. How did they find her apartment? How did they know her full name? She grabbed her phone and saw 17 missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize, dozens of texts from people she barely knew, and her social media accounts, which she rarely used, flooded with messages. Most were curious. Some were supportive. Many were cruel. Gold digger. Mafia whore. You ruined a good man's reputation for attention. Hope you're happy, you manipulative bitch. Anna felt sick. She hadn't asked for any of this. She'd spilled water, gotten pushed, and now her entire life was unraveling. Her phone rang, a number she recognized. Her landlord. Hello. Miss Martinez, I'm getting complaints. There are photographers in the building asking about you. Bothering other tenants. This is a quiet building. We can't have this kind of attention. I didn't invite them. I don't want them here. Nevertheless, it's becoming a problem. I need to ask, is there something going on I should know about? Anna closed her eyes. Even her landlord thought she'd done something wrong.
No.
Nothing.
I'll
handle it. She hung up and sank onto her couch, staring at her phone as notifications kept flooding in. Someone had found her Instagram. 3 photos total, all from over a year ago, and people were picking apart everything. Her smile, her clothes, her background. Strangers analyzing her life like she was a puzzle to solve. A text appeared from Marcus. Don't come to work. There are reporters outside the restaurant. Mr. Chin says stay away until this blows over. So now she couldn't even work. Not that she had a job anymore, probably. Another text, unknown number, pack a bag. You're being moved. Anna stared at it. Moved where? By who? No response. 20 minutes later, someone knocked, a different rhythm, calm and professional. Anna looked through the peephole and saw the scarred man from the alley, the one from Alessandro's detail. She opened the door a crack, the chain still attached. What's happening? You're not safe here. Too exposed. Too easy to find, his voice was matter of fact. We have a place for you. Quieter. More secure. I don't want to go anywhere. I want my life back. That's not an option right now, miss. His expression softened slightly. Look, I get it. This is scary. But those reporters out front? They're the least of your problems. The Caldwells are escalating. They're pushing this story hard, and people are picking sides. Some of those messages you're getting? They're from people who think you deserve what's coming. Anna felt cold. What does that mean? It means we're taking you somewhere safe. Tonight. And if I say no... He looked at her for a long moment. Then you're on your own. And when something happens, and it will, we won't be there to stop it. Anna wanted to argue, to insist she could handle this herself. But she'd seen the messages. The hate. The strangers who thought they knew her story and had already decided she was the villain. I'll pack, she whispered. By that evening, every tabloid in New York had run some version of the story. Mystery waitress linked to Mafia boss. Who is Anna Martinez? The woman who started a war. Caldwell heir humiliated after clash with Moretti associate. The articles were breathless, speculative, and everywhere. Some painted her as an innocent victim. Others suggested she was a plant, a honey trap, someone who deliberately engineered the whole situation. A few even implied she was already part of organized crime. The comment sections were worse. She's obviously his mistress. Look at her, she knew what she was doing. I feel bad for her. She's just caught in the middle of powerful men. Another woman using victimhood for fame and money. The Caldwells are trash. Good for her standing up to them. This is what happens when criminals run our city. On cable news, talking heads debated whether Alessandro Moretti's public intervention represented a shift in organized crime's relationship with civilian affairs. Legal experts discussed the Caldwell lawsuits. Social media influencers posted think pieces about class warfare and power dynamics. Everyone had an opinion about Anna's life. Nobody asked her what actually happened. By the time she was escorted out of her building through the service entrance, past the reporters who'd been waiting in the lobby, Anna felt like a ghost haunting her own existence. The scarred man and his partner guided her to a black SUV with tinted windows. "Where are we going?" she asked as they pulled into traffic. "Somewhere the cameras can't find you," the younger man said from the driver's seat. Anna looked out the window at the city lights blurring past. 2 weeks ago, she'd been invisible. A nobody. A waitress who paid her rent on time and kept her head down and never caused trouble. Now her face was on the news. Strangers were debating her morals, and she was being hidden away like a fugitive. "I didn't ask for this," she said quietly. "Any of this." The scarred man glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. "Nobody ever does, miss. But that doesn't change what is." The SUV drove through the night, carrying her away from her apartment, her job, her normal life, carrying her deeper into a world she didn't understand and never wanted to enter. Behind them, the cameras kept flashing. The story kept growing. And somewhere in his Tribeca office, Alessandro Moretti watched the news coverage with cold satisfaction. Richard Caldwell wanted a public battle. He'd given him one. Now, everyone would see what happened when you pushed the wrong person down. The Caldwell Properties press conference was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m., held in the gleaming lobby of their flagship building on 5th Avenue. Richard had orchestrated every detail: the lighting, the backdrop, the carefully selected journalists who'd been promised exclusive follow-up interviews. Ethan sat beside his father at the polished oak table, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit and an expression of wounded dignity. They'd rehearsed this for hours. Dylan Torres had coached him on body language, tone, when to pause for effect. "Look sincere," Dylan had instructed. "Not angry. Hurt. Disappointed. You're the victim who just wants to move forward." Now, facing 24 cameras and twice as many reporters, Ethan kept his hands folded on the table, his posture relaxed but attentive. Exactly as practiced. Richard spoke first, his voice measured and grave. "Thank you all for coming. My family doesn't typically engage in public disputes, but recent events have forced us to address serious allegations and misrepresentations." He paused, letting the weight settle. "Last Friday evening, my son Ethan experienced what should have been a minor incident at a restaurant, an employee's carelessness that resulted in property damage. What followed has been a coordinated campaign of defamation and intimidation that we can no longer ignore." A reporter's hand shot up. Richard nodded. "Are you referring to the video of your son pushing a waitress?" "I'm referring to a video that shows one brief moment without context," Richard corrected smoothly. "A video that has been selectively edited and shared to create a false narrative. What that video doesn't show is the minutes before, the employee's reckless behavior, her refusal to accept responsibility, and my son's entirely reasonable response to someone who destroyed a $5,000 jacket and showed no remorse." Ethan leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I want to be clear, I never intended to hurt anyone. When Miss Martinez stumbled backward, it was because she was already off balance from her own carelessness. The video makes it look worse than it was," he swallowed, as if fighting emotion. "What hurts most is how this has been twisted into something it wasn't. I'm being portrayed as some kind of monster when all I did was react like anyone would to having their property destroyed and being treated with disrespect." Another reporter: "What about Alessandro Moretti's involvement?" Richard's expression hardened. "That's exactly what concerns us. Mr. Moretti's violent overreaction to a simple accident raises serious questions. Why would someone with his reputation publicly assault my son over a waitress he'd never met? What is the true nature of their relationship?" And why is Miss Martinez apparently being protected and sheltered by individuals with organized crime connections? The room buzzed. This was the angle they'd been waiting for. Are you suggesting the waitress is involved with organized crime? A tabloid journalist called out. I'm suggesting the facts don't add up, Richard said carefully. A young woman with no apparent connection to Mr. Moretti suddenly has his full protection, his resources, his influence. She's disappeared from her apartment, being hidden by his associates.
Why?
What's the real story here? Dylan stepped forward with prepared materials, glossy folders distributed to every journalist. Inside, a timeline of events, photographs of Ethan's ruined jacket, copies of the restaurant complaint, and most damaging, a detailed background on Anna that made her look calculating. Miss Martinez has worked at multiple upscale restaurants over the past 3 years, Dylan explained, reading from prepared notes. Each position lasted less than 9 months. At her previous employment, she was reprimanded twice for errors in service. There's a pattern here of someone who seeks attention, who creates problems, and who has now found the perfect situation to exploit. It was masterful character assassination. None of it was technically false. Anna had worked at other restaurants before Le Bernardin Palace, had been reprimanded once for being late and once for dropping a tray, but the way it was presented suggested something sinister. Melissa Kim distributed another document, a formal defamation complaint filed that morning with the New York State Supreme Court. We are seeking damages for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and conspiracy to harm our family's reputation, she announced. This complaint names not just Miss Martinez, but anyone who has knowingly participated in spreading false and malicious information about my client and his son. The language was broad enough to include Alessandro without naming him directly, a calculated risk, but one that allowed them to appear strong without directly challenging the Mafia boss. How much are you seeking? Someone shouted. $20 million, Melissa said flatly. Plus court costs and punitive damages. The number landed like a bomb. 20 million would destroy someone like Anna. It would haunt her for life. Ethan spoke again, his voice thick with practiced emotion. I don't want money. I just want my life back. I want to stop being called a bully and a coward. I want people to know the truth, that I'm the real victim here. This woman's carelessness and this situation she's created with certain individuals has turned my entire life upside down. He looked directly into the cameras. I'm not a bad person. I don't deserve this. The performance was flawless. Several reporters actually looked sympathetic. Richard stood, signaling the end. We won't be taking further questions, but our legal team has prepared detailed statements. Thank you for your time and for helping us tell our side of this story. Within an hour, the news cycle had shifted. Caldwell's Fight Back were the real victims. $20 million defamation suit filed against mystery waitress Ethan Caldwell. I'm not a monster. Questions mount about Moretti connection to Martinez. Social media exploded with debate. Finally, someone telling the truth. These gold diggers always play victim. Are we really believing the billionaires are the victims here? That press conference was BS. We all saw the video. $20 million? They're trying to destroy her for an accident. Something's not right about her connection to Moretti. They're hiding something. By evening, even legitimate news outlets were questioning Anna's motives, her background, her sudden disappearance. The narrative was shifting, not completely, but enough. Enough to create doubt. Enough to make some people wonder if maybe, just maybe, the Caldwells had a point. In his Tribeca office, Alessandro watched the press conference recording for the third time, his expression unreadable. Vincent stood nearby, arms crossed. They're playing it smart. Can't attack you directly, so they're attacking the girl's credibility. Make her look like a schemer. Make you look like you got played by a pretty face. They filed a $20 million lawsuit against a waitress. And they'll withdraw it later as a goodwill gesture to look magnanimous. Right now, it's just meant to scare her. Intimidate anyone helping her. Vincent paused. It's working, too. I've had 3 calls from people distancing themselves, saying they don't want to get involved in legal complications. Alessandro's jaw tightened. Richard Caldwell thinks he can control the narrative by playing victim, by making this about doubt and questions instead of what actually happened. Can he? Alessandro stood, walking to his window. The city lights flickered in the darkness below. No, he said quietly, because doubt works both ways. And he's built his entire empire on appearing legitimate.
Clean.
Above reproach. He turned back to Vincent, his expression cold. Let's show them what's really underneath. The first package arrived at the New York Times on Friday morning. Jennifer Walsh, investigative reporter with 15 years covering city corruption, almost tossed it in the recycling. No return address, plain manila envelope, the kind cranks used to send conspiracy theories and grainy photos of UFOs. But something made her open it. Inside, a USB drive and a single type note. The Caldwells aren't who they claim to be. Everything you need is here. Verify it. Jennifer plugged the drive into her computer. Her eyes widened. Zoning permit applications with handwritten notes in the margins, dollar amounts, dates, initials. Building inspection reports that had been filed showing violations, then mysteriously replaced days later with clean versions. Bank statements showing wire transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, each transfer coinciding with a major permit approval or rezoning decision. Holy shit, Jennifer breathed. She spent the next hour cross-referencing everything. The documents were real. She could verify the permit numbers, the dates, the officials involved. Someone had handed her a roadmap to systematic corruption spanning 5 years. By noon, 3 other major outlets had received identical packages. The Washington Post's New York bureau chief opened his to find detailed records of Caldwell Properties bribing city council members to approve zoning changes that displaced low-income residents. Names, amounts, email correspondence that made it impossible to deny. The Wall Street Journal got financial documents showing money laundering through shell companies, luxury properties purchased with cash, held for months, then sold at suspicious losses that magically reduced the Caldwells' tax burden. Bloomberg received evidence of Caldwell Properties manipulating building code enforcement, paying inspectors to ignore violations at their sites while red-flagging competitors' projects. Every package included the same note, verify it. And they did. By Friday evening, Jennifer Walsh had confirmed enough to run with the story. Her editor initially hesitated. The Caldwells had powerful lawyers and deep pockets, but the documentation was too solid to ignore. The article went live at 11 p.m. Caldwell Empire built on corruption. Internal documents reveal years of bribery, money laundering. The opening paragraph pulled no punches. Caldwell Properties, one of Manhattan's most prominent real estate developers, has systematically bribed city officials, manipulated building inspections, and laundered money through offshore shell companies, according to internal documents obtained by the Times. The evidence suggests a pattern of corruption dating back at least 5 years, touching dozens of projects across New York City. The story included photocopies of damning documents, carefully redacted to protect sources, but clear enough to show authenticity. Bank transfers with handwritten notes like ZB approval, final payment, and inspector handled proceed, email chains discussing the usual arrangements for permit approvals. Within an hour, the other outlets published their versions. Each one added new details, new evidence, new angles. Together, they painted a devastating picture. Richard Caldwell's phone started ringing at midnight. Have you seen it? Catherine didn't bother with hello. It's everywhere. The Times, the Post, Bloomberg. They have our financial records, Richard. They have everything. Richard sat in his home office in his pajamas, laptop open, watching his empire collapse in real time. The articles were being shared thousands of times. Cable news was already preparing emergency segments. His carefully constructed press conference from yesterday, Ethan's wounded dignity, the defamation lawsuit, their victim narrative, was being obliterated. Where did they get this? He whispered. Does it matter? It's out. It's verified. The DA's office is going to have to investigate. Richard scrolled through the documents embedded in the Times article. He recognized them. These were from his private files, his secured servers. Only a handful of people had access, and he trusted them all. Which meant someone had stolen them. Or, more likely, given what happened to his construction projects, someone had been planning this for a long time. Alessandro Moretti. He's destroying us, Richard said flatly. You think? Catherine's voice dripped with bitter sarcasm. You pushed a waitress. Our idiot son made a scene, and instead of apologizing and moving on, you decided to wage war with a man who's been operating in this city longer than you've been alive. What did you think would happen? We had to fight back. We couldn't just. You could have done nothing. You could have taken the hit, paid the girl to go away, and this would have been forgotten in a week. Catherine's voice rose. But no. You had to protect Ethan's pride. You had to file lawsuits and hold press conferences and make yourselves targets. Well, congratulations, Richard. You're targets. The line went dead. Richard sat in the dark, watching the story metastasize across social media. Hashtags were already trending. Hashtag Caldwell corruption, hashtag billionaire scandal, hashtag NYC bribery. His phone buzzed with new messages. From his lawyer. We need to talk. Tonight. From his lead investor. Emergency board meeting. Monday, 9 a.m. Don't be late. From the mayor's office. The DA has opened a formal investigation. They'll want to speak with you. By Saturday morning, the narrative had completely shifted. The same reporters who'd been sympathetic at yesterday's press conference were now writing scathing follow-ups. Editorial boards were calling for investigations. Political opponents were demanding accountability. Caldwell, victim, narrative collapses amid corruption scandal. From press conference to federal investigation in 24 hours. Ethan Caldwell's tears look hollow next to family's bribery evidence. Social media was merciless. So the real victims were actually criminals the whole time. Shocker. They sued a waitress for $20 million while laundering millions. The audacity. Funny how bullies always claim they're the victim when they get caught. That press conference aged like milk. The defamation lawsuit became a punchline. Legal experts on cable news called it a desperate distraction from serious criminal exposure. One commentator noted dryly, "It's hard to claim defamation when you're being investigated for money laundering." By Sunday, federal investigators had joined the inquiry. The FBI was interested in the offshore accounts. The IRS wanted to discuss tax evasion. The Manhattan DA was building a case around the bribery evidence. Ethan's carefully rehearsed wounded expression from the press conference became a meme, his face photoshopped onto various criminals throughout history, captioned with variations of, "I'm the real victim here." Richard watched it all unfold from his penthouse, feeling the walls close in exactly as Alessandro had promised. His projects were frozen. His reputation was destroyed. His legal exposure was catastrophic. And worst of all, he'd done it to himself. Alessandro had just held up a mirror and shown the world what was already there. Vincent knocked on Alessandro's office door Sunday evening, a rare smile on his face. The DA's office raided Caldwell Properties this afternoon. Walked out with 18 boxes of documents. He set down a tablet showing news footage of federal agents carrying evidence from the Fifth Avenue building. Richard Caldwell's lawyer issued a statement saying they'll cooperate fully with all investigations. Alessandro nodded, watching the footage, without expression. The lawsuit. Withdrawn an hour ago. Citing unforeseen complications. And Anna? Safe. Quiet. Still doesn't understand what's happening, but she's not in danger anymore. Alessandro stood, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Richard Caldwell was learning what Alessandro had known for years. Power wasn't about money or buildings or press conferences. It was about knowing where the bodies were buried. And having the patience to dig them up at exactly the right moment. The Beaumont Foundation Charity Gala was Manhattan's most exclusive social event of the fall season. Held annually at the Plaza Hotel's Grand Ballroom, it attracted senators, CEOs, celebrities, and anyone who wanted to be seen as mattering in New York high society. Tickets started at $10,000. The guest list was curated by committee. Getting invited meant something. Richard Caldwell had been a fixture at the gala for 20 years. "This is our opportunity," he told his crisis management team on Monday morning. His legal troubles were mounting: the DA's investigation, the FBI inquiry, the IRS audit, but he refused to hide. "The gala is Friday. Everyone who matters will be there. We make an appearance, we show we're not running scared, and we remind people that the Caldwell name still means something in this city." Dylan Torres looked skeptical. "Sir, with respect, your approval ratings are in the basement right now. The corruption story is everywhere. Showing up at a society gala might look tone-deaf." "Not showing up looks like guilt," Richard countered. "We go, we're gracious, we write a big check to charity, and we demonstrate that we're cooperating with investigations while maintaining our innocence. It's about controlling optics." Melissa Kim nodded slowly. "The Beaumont Foundation hasn't withdrawn your invitation. That's significant. It means they're not ready to completely cut ties. If we handle this right, it could be the first step toward rehabilitating your image." Exactly. Richard stood, adjusting his cufflinks. "We've taken hits. Bad ones. But we're not out. The Caldwells don't quit." What Richard didn't know was that the Beaumont Foundation had received a very generous anonymous donation that week. $5 million, donated through a nonprofit arts foundation that listed no board members and operated out of a building in Tribeca that also housed several import-export businesses. The foundation's director, Margaret Beaumont, was many things: philanthropist, socialite, former museum curator, but she wasn't stupid. She knew who'd sent the money. She also knew that such generosity came with unspoken expectations. When her assistant asked about adding a last-minute guest to the invitation list, Margaret approved it without question. Anna was sitting in the safe house, a modest but comfortable apartment in a quiet Brooklyn neighborhood, when Vincent Rosselli arrived on Tuesday afternoon. She'd spent the past week in a fog of confusion and fear, watching her life become a news story she couldn't control. "I need to go back to work," she said when Vincent entered. "I can't just sit here forever. I have bills, I have a life." "You have an invitation." Vincent set a cream-colored envelope on the coffee table. Heavy stock, gold embossing. The kind of invitation Anna had seen wealthy customers receive, but never imagined holding herself. She picked it up, hands trembling. "The Beaumont Foundation Charity Gala requests the pleasure of your company." "This is a mistake." "It's not. I'm a waitress. I can't go to something like this. I don't even own a dress fancy enough for." "A dress will be provided," Vincent interrupted calmly. "Transportation, everything you need. You just have to show up." Anna stared at him.
Why?
"Why would I go? The Caldwells will be there. Everyone will be staring at me. You'll be fine." Vincent sat across from her, his expression gentler than she'd seen before. "Listen, Anna. I know this is overwhelming. I know you didn't ask for any of this. But that gala? It's not really about charity. It's about power. About who matters and who doesn't. About who gets to show their face and who has to hide. I don't care about power. I just want my life back." "This is how you get it back." Vincent leaned forward. "Right now, people are telling your story. The Caldwells painted you as a schemer. The media made you a mystery. Everyone has an opinion, but nobody's actually seen you. You're a ghost. A rumor. Good. I want to be invisible again." "You can't. Not anymore. The story's out there." His voice was firm but not unkind. "But you can control how it ends. You can show up at that gala, stand in the same room as the people who tried to destroy you, and let them see that you're still here. Still standing. That they didn't break you." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "I'm terrified." "I know. But here's the thing. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to give a speech or confront anyone or be brave. You just have to stand there." Vincent's eyes held hers. "The rest is already decided." "What does that mean?" "It means you're not alone in this. It means when you walk into that ballroom, you're not just some waitress they can push around. You're under protection. You matter. And everyone in that room will know it." Anna wiped her eyes. looking down at the invitation. The Plaza Hotel. Friday at 7. A world so far from hers it might as well be Mars. What if I say no? Vincent stood, straightening his jacket. Then you stay here, stay safe, and eventually this all blows over. You find a new job somewhere, build a new life, and hope nobody recognizes you. That's an option. But the Caldwells will have one. They try to make you disappear, to erase you like you never mattered. And you'll have let them. He paused at the door. Your choice, Anna. Nobody's forcing you. But sometimes standing up means just standing. Being visible when people want you gone. After he left, Anna sat alone with the invitation, reading it over and over. She thought about Ethan Caldwell's sneer, his hands shoving her to the floor. The snickering crowd. The way she'd felt, small, worthless, erasable. She thought about the past week of hiding, watching strangers debate her character, her motives, her worth. She thought about Alessandro Moretti grabbing Ethan by the collar, those 7 seconds when someone had finally said, no, not her, not this time. Anna picked up her phone and texted the number Vincent had given her. I'll go. The response came immediately. Good. A stylist will visit Wednesday. Hair and makeup Friday at 4. Car picks you up at 6:30. Don't worry about anything else. Anna set down her phone and walked to the window, looking out at the Brooklyn streets below. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that in 3 days, she'd walk into the Plaza Hotel and face the people who'd tried to destroy her. She was terrified. But Vincent was right. She was tired of being invisible. Tired of being pushed down. Just once, she wanted to stand. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom glittered like a jewelry box turned inside out. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across tables draped in ivory silk, each centerpiece a small fortune in orchids and roses. Women in evening gowns worth more than Anna's annual salary glided past men in tuxedos that fit like second skins. Champagne flowed. Diamonds sparkled. Money whispered in every corner. Anna felt like an imposter in a borrowed dream. The dress they'd provided was midnight blue, simple but elegant, falling just below her knees. Nothing flashy. Nothing that screamed for attention. The stylist had kept her makeup natural, her dark hair swept into a loose chignon. You're not trying to compete with them, the woman had explained. You're just being yourself. But Anna didn't feel like herself. She felt like a girl playing dress-up in someone else's life. Ready. Vincent offered his arm at the entrance. He'd arrived with the car, an unexpected courtesy. Behind him, 2 other men in dark suits, Alessandro's people, always watching. No, Anna admitted. But I'm here anyway. They entered together. The moment Anna stepped into the ballroom, conversation stuttered and died like dominoes falling. Heads turned. Whispers rippled outward in waves. She felt every eye lock onto her, felt the weight of recognition, curiosity, judgment. That's her. The waitress. What's she doing here? Anna's instinct was to run. Vincent's hand on her arm kept her steady. Eyes forward, he murmured. You belong here just as much as any of them. They found their table, mercifully toward the side, not center stage. Anna sat, hyper-aware of everything, the couple 3 tables over staring openly, the woman in emeralds whispering behind her hand, the photographer in the corner whose camera kept swinging her direction. Then she saw the Caldwells. They sat at a prominent table near the front, Richard in a perfectly cut tuxedo, Catherine in champagne silk, and Ethan looking pale and uncomfortable. The family that had tried to destroy her, sitting 20 feet away in their tailored armor of wealth and status. Richard noticed her. His expression flickered, surprise, then anger, then something calculating. He leaned toward Catherine, whispered something. She glanced at Anna, her face a mask of controlled displeasure. The evening proceeded with agonizing formality. Dinner was served, courses Anna barely tasted. Speeches were given by foundation directors and generous donors. The Beaumont Foundation presented awards. Throughout it all, Anna felt like an exhibit, a curiosity everyone pretended not to stare at while staring constantly. Then Margaret Beaumont took the microphone for closing remarks. Before we conclude this wonderful evening, I'd like to acknowledge the incredible generosity of our donors. She listed names, powerful families, corporations, foundations. And a special thank you to our anonymous benefactor, whose extraordinary $5 million contribution will fund arts education programs across the city for the next decade. Applause filled the ballroom. Anna clapped politely, not understanding. Margaret continued, her voice taking on a more serious tone. This foundation was built on principles of compassion, dignity, and standing up for those who cannot stand for themselves. These values matter, especially in challenging times when it's easier to look away than to do what's right. The room grew quieter. People sensed something shifting. Which brings me to a matter that has dominated our city's attention these past weeks. Margaret looked directly at Richard Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell, would you join me, please? The ballroom went silent. Richard stood slowly, his lawyer face firmly in place, and walked to the front. Camera flashes erupted. The event had media present, carefully selected outlets covering Manhattan's elite at play. Anna's heart hammered. What was happening? Mr. Caldwell, Margaret said, her voice carrying through the microphone, you've asked for this opportunity to address a situation that has caused considerable discussion. Richard took a breath, and Anna suddenly understood. This had been arranged, negotiated. The price of his attendance, perhaps, or a condition Margaret had imposed after receiving that anonymous $5 million donation. Richard looked out at the crowd, then his eyes found Anna. For a moment, the billionaire real estate mogul who'd tried to crush her looked almost human, almost vulnerable. Miss Martinez, he began, his voice carefully modulated. I owe you an apology. The words landed like stones in still water, creating ripples of shocked murmurs. Recent events have revealed truths about my family and our business practices that I deeply regret. In the midst of addressing these issues, I allowed anger and pride to dictate my actions. He paused, the pause of a man who'd rehearsed this, but hated every word. My son made a mistake. I compounded it by attacking your character and your livelihood instead of simply apologizing. For that, I am truly sorry. Anna sat frozen. Every camera in the room swung between Richard and her, capturing her shock, his carefully controlled contrition. What happened at Le Bernardin Palace was a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control, Richard continued, using the exact language his lawyers had probably written. You were doing your job. The accident was exactly that, an accident. Neither you nor anyone else deserved the treatment you received, from my son or from my family's subsequent actions. I apologize publicly, completely, and without reservation. He looked at Ethan, who sat at their table with his head lowered, face burning red. Ethan? Ethan stood reluctantly, looking like he might be sick. He couldn't meet Anna's eyes. I'm sorry, he managed, his voice barely audible. I was wrong. I'm sorry. The humiliation was total, absolute. The man who'd sneered at her, pushed her, called her stupid, was apologizing in front of Manhattan's elite with cameras capturing every second. Anna opened her mouth, unsure what to say. Then she saw him. Alessandro Moretti stood at the very back of the ballroom, partially hidden in shadow near the service entrance. Arms crossed. Face expressionless. He wasn't sitting at a table, hadn't eaten dinner, hadn't participated in the evening's festivities. He was just there. His presence filled the room more than any speech or apology. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone understood what his attendance meant. The Caldwells weren't apologizing because they wanted to. They were apologizing because they had to. Because the alternative was worse. Alessandro's dark eyes met Anna's across the crowd. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just looked at her for a moment, then turned and disappeared through the service door, leaving as silently as he'd arrived. Miss Martinez? Margaret's voice pulled her back. You accept their apology? Anna looked at Richard Caldwell, powerful, desperate, trapped by his own choices. Looked at Ethan, humiliated and small, looked at the crowd of wealthy elites watching this drama unfold over champagne and dessert. "I accept," Anna said quietly. Because what else could she say? Because despite everything, she just wanted it to end. Applause erupted, polite and uncertain. Richard returned to his table without meeting anyone's eyes. The evening concluded with awkward small talk and hurried exits. Anna sat in her chair as the ballroom slowly emptied, Vincent standing nearby, and realized something fundamental had shifted. She'd walked in as a victim. She was leaving as something else entirely. 3 days after the gala, Anna returned to Le Bernardin Palace. Marcus nearly dropped his clipboard when she walked through the back in trance in her server's uniform. "Anna? I thought. We didn't know if you were coming back." "I need to work," she said simply. "And last I checked, nobody actually fired me." Mr. Chen emerged from his office, looking relieved and anxious in equal measure. "Anna, welcome back. If you need anything, any accommodations, just let me know." It was strange, being treated like she might break. She was the same person who'd worked here for 2 years, who knew every table number and wine pairing by heart. But everything had changed, and everyone knew it. Her first shift was surreal. The dinner crowd arrived as always, wealthy couples celebrating anniversaries, business dinners lubricated with expensive wine, tourists treating themselves to something special. But when Anna approached tables, something was different. "Good evening, my name is Anna, and I'll be." "We know who you are," an older woman in pearls interrupted, but her smile was warm. "It's lovely to meet you, dear." Her dinner companion nodded. "What you went through is awful. We're glad you're all right." Anna didn't know how to respond. "Thank you. Can I start you with drinks?" It happened again at the next table. And the next. Customers who would have barely noticed her before now treated her with careful respect, like she was someone who mattered. A few even asked for photos, which Mr. Chen quickly, but politely discouraged. The other servers were different too. Before, Anna had been part of the furniture, another body in the rotation, friendly but forgettable. Now they watched her with a mixture of awe and wariness. Whispered conversations stopped when she entered the break room. Questions hung unasked in the air. Sarah, a server who'd worked there longer than Anna, finally spoke what everyone was thinking.
"So,
"Are you, connected now?" To them. "I'm just trying to work," Anna said quietly. "But Alessandro Moretti helped me when I needed help. That's all." Anna pulled on her apron. "I'm the same person I was 2 weeks ago. I just want to do my job." Sarah nodded slowly, but the distance remained. Anna understood. She'd become something they couldn't quite categorize, not quite one of them anymore, but not part of that other world either. Suspended somewhere in between. The Caldwells, meanwhile, had retreated from public view entirely. Ethan's social media went dark. Richard canceled all public appearances. Catherine resigned from 3 charity boards. Their flagship Crown Tower project remained frozen, investors pulling out in waves. Federal investigators worked through boxes of evidence while lawyers negotiated plea deals behind closed doors. The empire wasn't destroyed. Too much money, too many assets, too many lawyers for complete collapse. But it was wounded, diminished, operating under a cloud of scandal that wouldn't lift for years. The Caldwell name, once synonymous with success, now carried whispers of corruption and humiliation. Anna watched it unfold from a distance, through news articles and overheard conversations. She felt no satisfaction, no vindication. Just a strange, hollow exhaustion, like surviving a storm and surveying the wreckage. 2 weeks after her return, Alessandro Moretti walked into Le Bernardin Palace. Anna was clearing a table when she noticed the familiar silence, that particular quality of quiet that meant someone important had arrived. She looked up and saw him being escorted to table 23 by Marcus, who looked pale and nervous. Her hands trembled as she balanced the plates. "Anna," Mr. Chen appeared beside her. "Table 23 requested you specifically." Of course they had. She approached the table on unsteady legs. Alessandro sat alone, reading something on his phone. He wore a dark suit, understated and perfectly tailored. When he looked up, his expression was neutral, polite. "Good evening," Anna said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Can I get you something to drink?" "The Barolo, please." 2016-inch. Right away, she turned to leave. "Anna." She stopped, turned back. Alessandro studied her for a moment with those dark, unreadable eyes. "You're all right?" It wasn't really a question, more an assessment.
"Yes. Thank you."
"For everything." He nodded once, dismissing the gratitude as unnecessary. Just doing what needed to be done. Anna wanted to ask so many questions. Why had he helped her? What did he want from her? Was she safe now, truly safe, or would there always be a debt hanging over her head? But looking at him, she understood she'd never get real answers. Men like Alessandro Moretti didn't explain themselves. They simply acted, and the world rearranged itself around their decisions. "I'll get your wine," she said. Over the following weeks, Alessandro became an occasional regular. Once, maybe twice a month, always at table 23, always requesting her section. He was polite, tipped well, never lingered too long, never mentioned that night, the videos, the gala, any of it. He was just a customer, and she was just a waitress. Except they both knew better. The city moved on as cities do. New scandals replaced old ones. Different headlines captured attention. The story of the waitress and the Mafia boss faded into Manhattan lore, something people referenced occasionally, a cautionary tale about power and consequences, but no longer breaking news. Anna Martinez returned to her quiet life, or something close to it. She paid her rent on time, worked her shifts, stayed invisible in the ways that mattered. But when she walked through the restaurant now, she walked differently. Head higher, voice steadier. Because she'd learned something fundamental that night on the marble floor when she'd whispered those words, "Please don't push me down again." She'd learned that sometimes the quietest voices carried the furthest. That standing up didn't always mean fighting back. Sometimes it just meant refusing to disappear. What began with a shove ended with a public power shift, and one waitress's quiet voice changed the city's balance without lifting a finger.